What was going through my mind as you said that was, as a cybersecurity leader, how do you come to terms with the fact that it is an infinite game? It's never ending. You can't. You go back to being a gamer as a kid,
Yeah.
right? There's no completion. The levels are infinite. The difficulty is increasingly more complex. How do you know when enough is enough?
To tell you the truth, I don't really know that story yet, the answer to that question yet. But it's definitely not when you're exhausted and you lost all your resources. It's something else, okay?
One of the things that I can increasingly encounter in the world of recruitment now is we're seeing fake resumes.
Yeah.
Not even fake people, but people claiming they have skills that they don't have. So this is maybe a slight difference to identity, but it's a misrepresented identity. And then what concerns me is over here we then have robots screening these fake resumes, and then even chatbots interviewing these people and presenting shortlists. And where's the truth through this?
The truth is in the way that we're defining identity. The true identity is what you did and what you about to do is with what you've accumulated, right?
Roy Akerman is a seasoned cybersecurity entrepreneur and executive with over 20 years of experience in developing advanced security technologies and leading mission-critical cyber defense initiatives across both national and enterprise environments. Roy is the Vice President of Identity Security at Silverfort, leading go-to-market advisory and expert services, as well as its incident response and compromise assessment operations. Roy started out at the Office of the Prime Minister of Israel for the first 17 years of his career, then moved overseas and worked for Cybereason, founding Rezonate, which later was acquired by Silverfort. Let's jump in and hear what Roy's got to say.
So, Roy, thank you for joining me today
Thank you for having me
on the podcast. So I'm really excited to understand your story of where you've come from. So, and there's two topics that I really want to unpack with you to get through that. So firstly is your kind of origin story. How did you get into cybersecurity? What kind of provoked that interest, and how have you really built that career to where you've got to today, including launching a cyber startup as well? And then secondly, what's going on in cyber right now? What are you hearing? What are you seeing? I'm particularly interested, especially given that you're based in the US and you have a very global perspective. What kind of things that should Australia be thinking about from a cybersecurity perspective as well? But let's start with you, and let's kind of get that backstory. And from all my reading about you, you've got over 20 years of experience in cybersecurity technologies, and I think we're here really leading mission critical defense initiatives. But I'm interested, where did it all begin? Did you wake up one day and thought, cybersecurity, that's the thing that I want to do?
Oh no, hell no! It's a destiny for me. Everything starts way back in childhood when you're starting to play computer games, right?
Yeah.
And then you're getting obsessed of something is wrong with this game, right? I want to tweak it. I want to make it work in a different way. I want to have more lives and Mortal Kombat or like Super Mario. I want to bypass all the very hard stuff, but find the tricky way to do that. I don't want to play by the rule, right?
Yeah.
So somebody wrote a software. I want to tweak it. But I need to bypass some defense mechanisms and others. So even before I learned, how to speak English, born and raised in Israel, I was starting to reverse engineering software and figuring out how does it work. Now it was very, very easy back then, right? We're speaking about 80s, 90s. But then, reverse engineering, tweaking some software, and then along the time, things became more complex, right? Because we all know how cybersecurity evolves, right? First, people are taking advantage of an unprotected mechanism. Then security comes because it lags behind, putting some barriers, but these are mechanisms of defense. And then the hackers gets better, and then the defenders gets better.
Yeah.
So across the years, I played a lot with challenging some mechanisms. Some of them are, local on my computer. Some others that I should not speak about.
Yeah.
But it evolved over time. Had a BBS in the 90s, so I needed to crack some software in order to do that. But the big story begins when I was, like every other Israeli, enlisted to the army, and I was supposed to go to, like a combat unit, an elite unit, based off some physical combating. But then the government reached out and said, we know what you did last summer, something like that. And I found myself, with not really choice. Like I joined as a first white hat hacker to an Israeli government unit that were tasked with defending critical infrastructure and government secrets and all of this cool stuff. Basically, to be a hacker with a license to work for the good guys It's meaning that I was put in a room and they told me, okay, do you see that power plant? You need to show us how do you get to the control systems.
Wow.
Do you see this railway company? Like, show us if you can control a train to move from one rail to another, and a lot of other stories that by the end of the day, you're trying to hack defense systems, finding all the vulnerabilities, and then before the bad guys will exploit them, run to the other side and explaining, all the engineers that there was no CISO back then, but like the board and others how to fix that, working with vendors and others.
Yeah, wow.
So that was like 19 years of career that I did there. And I could spend a lot about speaking about the challenges there as well, but this is kind of like why I told that this is destiny, right?
So what, I guess I'm interested, I mean, there's a million things I'm interested in what you've just described. But I think the thing that I was fascinated by looking at your background is I saw you 17 or 18, 19 years as you described. So you went from sitting in a room, hacking railroads, to solution architecture, to chief of staff for the NISA, and then eventually chief of the global cyber defense operations, and you earned the Medal of Honor. That's an incredible achievement through that time. So what was the secret to your success?
Well, hindsight, it's really hard to say. I think that I was just like in the right place in the right time. Sometimes I feel like Forrest Gump, right? That you can see that he was like in all these very special occasions, right?
Yeah.
And like fought all the battles. He just like been there. So I've been lucky to live in a very interesting transition phases from analog to digital, and from the network level to the internet level, and now from internet to cloud. So when there is a transition, and today we have a transition from cloud to AI or from SaaS to AI, I think that the right thing is to look at the challenges and then play around there. So in that transition mode, there's a lot of vulnerabilities, right? We're just trying to chase technology. We don't think about security. And there's a lot of adversaries, opponents, hackers that will try to exploit that.
Yeah.
And with the defender, hat, you're thinking about the same, right? You want to do that. You don't want that anybody will do this for you.
Yeah.
So every time that there was a change, my mindset was about, okay, what is this weak point that we're having right now? Where can I find the adversaries? Well, they're taking advantage. How can I play better? How can I set the traps? So maybe this is kind of like my personal secret, to take this good guys, bad guys to every macro change that I can see, and then try to play the card the best as I can and the fastest that I can. Now, the second thing is that there's always transformations that you can play with. So for example, I started as a defender. I found vulnerabilities in systems, and then I was seeking to fix them. After a while, we figured out that it's an infinite war, right? Mm-hmm. Because, hack the hackers, or like hacking the mindset of defenders, like the other side, we always find something that is not work. For example, a lot of systems back then were air-gapped, right? They were segregated as an island, and there was no communication between, one power plant to another or something like that. Mm-hmm. So the assumption was that nobody will be able to get in, right? However, you need to update the system. You're bringing your disk on key, right? You need to bring some software from the outside world or whatever. So the idea is that always challenge the status quo of what's happening. So we didn't really wait to catch the hackers trying to exploit us. We started to figure out that we need to be more active, spare some traps around systems, or maybe go further to the red side from the blue side and start to find how do they actually start to build their infrastructure in order to attack us. So always like challenge what you're doing and try to find a better way. Yeah. And by the end of the day, this is how a defensive team or defensive unit became to be not offensive, but trying to be ahead of the hackers and the opponents within a few states. And this is the reason that we got the Medal of Honor. It's not just me; it's an entire team. It's an entire village that built a different way to fight the war for a very small group against all that threats out there.
It's interesting because I think in the world of sport, often you hear the phrase, the best form of defense is offense.
To some sort, but I'm a Celtics fan. I'm based in Boston for a lot of years. I never heard anyone asking, like shouting at the field, attack, or like offense. Everyone shout defense, right? True. And that's the thing. So you need.
But to go with that, I guess let's go with the basketball metaphor. Full court press is almost offense on defense, right?
Yeah.
As in you're really kind of pushing the defensive pressure on the other team.
Yeah, exactly. So, and it's a good call. I think that my angle on this, and by the way, I took this from like the best leaders that I appreciate that founded, like the Israeli country and others, is that you need to push the battle outside of the boundaries of your territory or countries, right? Because you don't want, by the end of the day, to wait that somebody will hack to a system and then run incident response and then try to fight it back and then to become, again, part of this infinite loop. So if you're pushing the most of your operations outside, around the attackers, around the one that's trying to get you, right, that have that focus, this is where you calling this offense, I'm still calling this defense, right?
Yeah.
Because if I want to detonate something that is about to harm me, okay, or may be used in order to do something bad for me, I'll need to go to that side.
Yep.
But you're right. In that war, there's a very thin line, right, about what you can do that will be recalled as defense, right?
It's. I think the word you used. It's an infinite game.
Yeah.
Which makes me think of Simon Sinek in his book, actually, The Infinite Game. But
Yeah.
but it also, what was going through my mind as you said that was, as a cybersecurity leader, how do you come to terms with the fact that it is an infinite game? It's never ending. You can't. You go back to being a gamer as a kid.
Yeah.
Right. There's no completion. The levels are infinite. The difficulty is increasingly more complex. How do you know when enough is enough?
To tell you the truth, I don't really know that story yet, the answer to that question yet. But it's definitely not when you're exhausted and you lost all your resources. It's something else, okay? Maybe I'll start with another metaphor. I'm a big sci-fi fan.
Okay.
But the most lovable book that I have, that I handed up to everyone that I promoted, was Ender's Game.
Okay.
Orson Scott.
Yeah.
Have you read?
No, I haven't, but I'm familiar with it. Yeah.
Okay, so like for the audience, I'll just say that please, like, there's a spoiler coming in. So if you want to read that book, and I encourage you to do that, you can fast forward like 30 seconds.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, we're speaking about a kid that like is being raised to be a commander of a celestial battle against the bad guys, humankind against some other animals. And he's going to command school and he's going through a Via Dolorosa of learning how to do stuff. And like every time that he's getting to a position that he thinks that he got that, they're pushing him to different levels, like fighting against different armies. Everything is a simulation. Okay. And like 95% of the book is about that and how he grows as a leader and all these tactics and everything else. And by the end of the day, there's the final exam that is need to fight, which is crazy and very, very hard. And there's a lot of people who came to watch him and everything else. And he's winning the battle, and then they exposing to him that this was a real battle.
Yeah.
This is what the battle for the life of the universe,
Okay.
right?
Interesting.
And he came into realizations that wars are infinite, and that the bad guys are have souls, have minds, they're flesh and bones and whatever. And for me, I think that the time that I realized that it's infinite is that I saw the other side and I got empathized with the other side.
Yeah.
Right. As an Israeli, as an American, like by the end of the day, you understand that the other side, have similar thoughts as you,
Yeah.
have some perception like you. So I think that the enough is coming into a position that both sides understand that instead of going to, I don't want to say violent actions, but more of a, again, like cat and mouse thing, or that game that the thief and the policeman like switching positions at night, is that you're starting to understand that you can signal the other side and they can signal you as well, and then you'll both maintain a specific balance.
Yeah.
So there's like unspoken boundaries, things that you can do, you allow them to do, and things that you do not allow them to do. And this is a balance that you can kind of like maintain without actually deploy all the other let's say very demanding mechanism from both sides. So there's a different layer of discussion that you can make with your opponents.
So you're talking about establishing boundaries.
Establishing boundaries with a lot of empathy, because it's not math. It's not just understanding the other side and playing, game theory games. It's not that. It's understanding exactly how the other side may feel, right? What will trigger them. And then trying to establish again the right and wrong. But you cannot really do that without empathy. And sometimes they're breaking the rule and we need to retaliate.
Yeah.
But not let this to escalate. So when you learn how to manage that balance, this is where it's kind of like a point of a break. Not enough is enough.
Yeah, of course. In that role, you're essentially the in the country. You're the lead for cybersecurity, cyber defense.
Was
In that position. How do you deal with that level of pressure?
Ooh, first of all, I did this when I was very young. So cyber evolved so quickly. The current, the existing level of leaders and of commanders were not part of this evolution, right?
Yeah.
They were I don't want to say that the age of dinosaurs, but they didn't really know how to, ran computers or write software or even hack. So running this level of balance and operations, like building units like that, was required some new and fresh blood. And as I told you, I felt like I'm Forrest Gump. In all of those occasions, I was there, and I had the luck to get promoted very young. So when you're doing this in the age of 28 or the age of 30, sometimes you're not even realize how pressuring this is.
Yep.
You can get one operation, 2 operations, 200 operations, right? Everybody trying to hack you all day long. It's not that, okay, well, you found someone, let's deal with it. You need to choose where to focus. There's in choice, it's actually saying that the other things can happen, right? Somebody will, take a tour in a cyber system in your country or whatever, and because you don't have resources, you'll do something else. So the way that I did that is that I just made sure that I have a lot of great people around me.
Yeah.
Super modest, come to work, love the country, love the work. This is one. 2, I think that I've had the luck to get wed very well. I married with my high school sweetheart, so she knows all my troubles and everything else, and I got a lot of support from home. And 3rd, I'm a compulsive reader, so sometimes I can transform myself to another world, just read and read and read, and this is my mantra. This is my safe harbor. I can sit in the office in the middle of a room and do that.
Is that kind of mindfulness for you, that escape with the reading as well?
Oh yeah.
So is that what you meant by that?
Yeah, it is a mindfulness. It is a mindfulness. And by the way, I'm an MIT grad, and mindfulness was invented at MIT.
Yep.
So when I went and took the official course of how to do that, I realized that naturally I did this in the right way.
Yeah, great. That's interesting. You then took the decision to walk away from that.
Hard decision.
Yeah. How did you reach that decision, and what motivated it?
For me, it was like a rehab, okay? Because, all these dopamine games that you're having, winning, losing, getting into the bowels of cybersecurity, you cannot really move away from that, right?
Okay.
Even when you're going home, even when you're going to sleep, even when you meditate or doing your mindfulness thing, you're still there. But in some point, I felt that I'm close to be burning, to be burnt. It was when I needed to fly to a mission, and I almost took the wrong flight. It was a private flight,
wow.
It's not that you're going through the gate.
Yeah. Okay.
And I came into the airplane, sat down, pulled my bags and everything, and then I looked around and I said, "Oh my God, where do I go? I forgot what's the destination." And then I said, "I need a stop."
Yeah.
So I went to my mentor and told him, "Listen, I need a break. I know that I have a very big promotions coming in, but maybe let's push it for 2 years."
Yep.
And I went to fulfill a dream to be a grad in grad school in MIT, the university that I most admire. Right, every open source with the MIT license, and the places of AI evolution, and a lot of other great tech. Right. For systems that went to space and others. So I had the luck to get admitted to that university. And then I just moved to the US and took a very long break.
Yeah.
And in MIT, I was enlightened that there's so many different ways to solve the same problem. And there's so many problems that are unsolved yet.
Yes.
So I decided that maybe it's the good time to move from the shadows to the front lines. Okay. Started to entertain with that idea, spoke with a lot of companies, helped to a lot of entrepreneurs, and by the end of the day, after 2 years, I decided that it's the time to have second lives.
Yes.
Okay, of the shadows, starting from scratch, because you cannot really use what you already did in the army, the technology, or in the government. And I made that transition, starting from zero, paying my student loans, not funded by anyone. And it was scary, so I knew that it's the right move.
Yeah, amazing. So that's interesting. So you've come away from that kind of pressure cooker environment and in the intensity, and just immersed yourself back in learning.
Yeah.
Discovery, curiosity, immersing yourself around other people, and I guess building on that kind of foundational knowledge you had at that point.
Yeah, correct.
You then went into a role in the private sector. How was that? How did you find working, I guess, in the US and be in the private sector?
Oh, so my wife called it like being a lion in the jungle, without like a different jungle, like a different world that you don't really know what's happening. Like what's the order? Nobody knows that you're the lion, right? I don't take myself as a lion, but this was like her metaphor. It was very weird, like from running an organization of 700 people and then taking a break to be responsible for your desk.
Yep.
And for a project that you don't know if it will pick up, from building technologies that you know who will use them, and they don't really have a choice. They need to. We're running an operation together. We're building something together. So the user is the builder, and then going to the industry and started to work with customers that have a choice.
Yes.
And you have competitors and you have other things. So to begin with, you're starting to think about this in all the terms and positions that you did, right? Oh, salesperson is like a handler. Marketing is like an intelligence officer. Things like that. I can tell you that there are some commonalities, but it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't work because of a lot of reasons. So it was very strange to me. But then again, the things that caught me is that everything can be simplified into, okay, there's a problem statement. There's the common way to solve it, but everybody can do that. But there's a better way, a faster way, smarter way, maybe, like a more effective way. So if you work around that and you realize that as opposed to the government, you'll not sit down in a lab and figure out what's the answer. You need to work with the other side. You need to work with the customers. You need to work with, learn from your competitors. You need to listen 80% of the time. That's your planning.
Yeah.
It's not getting the most creative. It's understanding the other side better. This is where I started to have the transition. And nowadays, this is what I'm doing. Like this is the reason that I'm visiting Australia, and I came from Vietnam, and then I live in Boston, and even I live near the market.
Yeah.
The people themselves, they have the answer. So.
Yes. It's interesting. I say this many times on the podcast, but one of my all-time favorite mantras, quotes in business is fall in love with your customers' problems, not your solutions.
Oh, wow. That's so true. And of course, I did many mistakes, even as a first-time entrepreneur, that I said, wow, it looks very cool. The UI is fantastic. And listen, like you can look at the data. It solved the problem better than all the giants out there.
Yeah.
And you're sure that everybody will see this as you see that, but they're experiencing the world in another way. Right?
Exactly right. And that's what I see with a lot of startups is somebody has an idea or a product or a service, and they're so obsessed with it, they stop listening.
Exactly.
Because all they want to do is because they're obsessed with it, they think everyone else should be. And it's very hard to disassociate and step back and go and test it. So to me, it's a hypothesis. It's really where every business should start from.
Right. And you need to know who to ask because, there's like, we're calling this the mama bias. You can say like, Mom, look what I built. What do you think? She said, wow, that's wonderful. And you can say, Mom, if you were a customer, would you buy it?
Yeah.
Of course, my boy. Of course, love. And then you're going to these early adopters, phenomenal people, super smart.
Yeah.
The relationship that they already have with them, the entrepreneur passion, again, making that bias again, they will say, yes, that's great. But can we make a market out of it? Can you change a market out of it?
100%. Look, I'm seeing that right now. There's so many AI products that are exposed every day, something in it. But it's always, to me, where they go wrong is they start with the solution. Very few are asking me, what problems do I have? As a business leader, as a recruiter, as a parent, whatever it could be in any walk of life. It sounds like you talked about the mama bias, which I've never heard before, which I love, by the way.
It's a great book, by the way. It's not my term.
Oh, it's a book. Okay. But it also sounds, you mentioned a couple of times, you mentioned your wife. It sounds like you get some pretty direct feedback from your wife.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So my wife went to, like, I know her from the age of 16. For the first second I saw her, I knew that this is it. For her, it took like 10 years to understand, but that's fine. I was committed. I knew I thought I know what will happen. I needed to work very hard for that. But the thing is that my wife went to film school. She's an artist. So quite the opposite of a techie guy, right? She's not that, she's not fond of math or doing our financials. And when she's like looking at me writing on the keyboard, it's more of the sound that I'm making than other of the outcome, right? But something with the artificial way to look at a situation, to look at the narrative, right? In the macro level, to look, to listen to a Zoom meeting that I have with a potential acquirer or like a potential investor, and being able to tell me, to describe the plot to describe the narrative, the energy in the room in a different way that I would never, be able to look at. This is something very powerful. So I'm kind of like addictive to like making decisions when my spouse like sits in the room and give her insights. Now, do I listen to everything that she says? Probably not. Yeah. But if Reut is listening right now, so it's like most of the time she's right.
Yeah.
Okay. But it just like takes me some time to understand that. So yeah, she's like giving direct feedback, like every Israeli woman. But she kind of like bring another layer into into my perception.
It's interesting, isn't it? There's so much talk about work-life balance. But actually, sometimes work-life balance is things like that. It's home and work, everything's intertwined.
Yeah.
And we don't just get feedback or interaction or connection with our colleagues. It does affect our whole person. And I think it's a trend I've seen on the podcast. The more leaders I've met, the wife or the husband often comes up, or the partner often comes up in the conversation as probably being the most significant person that helps them achieve what they set out to do. It's also interesting you said about it took about 10 years for your wife to come to the party.
Yeah.
It sounds like you had the solution. It took her a while to fall in love with the problem.
Something like that. She just like needed to see that narrative works.
Yeah. Tell me about Rezonate. So you founded that about 3 years ago, and where did that idea come from? What gap did you see in the market, and what were you trying to solve?
Cool. So I think that, and again, this is my personal, like philosophical approach. Every time that I dealt with a problem of security, I felt that there's something wrong in the equation, right? As a defender, as attack the attackers like a player, I felt that even when I'm, picking up the phone, calling to the, CISO of the refineries, I tell him, listen, like the Russians are coming. This is the user that they have. This is the password. It was very hard for them to understand who can use this identity in their organizations, what they can do, what defines them, what is the reach to the system that they can have, the privileges, their behaviors, and how to make the distinction between right and wrong. So I couldn't really articulate that time, but as I learned and read and went to the private sector, I learned that there's a name to this, identity, right? And like you've mentioned before, I felt that it's not solved, but I needed to speak with so many people before I understand what is wrong.
Yep.
Because there's a lot of practice around this. There's IAM engineers, and there's phenomenal companies that's solving that problem, like Okta and Microsoft or others. So what's the problem?
Yep.
Why 80% of the attacks are based on compromised identities? We're smart humans. But when somebody outsmart us, which can happen with phishing and voice phishing and whatever, then they can do whatever they want in our systems.
Yep.
So I looked at that problem, and after speaking with so many CISOs and IAM people and engineers, I understood that it's not a tech problem. It's a process and people problem. Mm-hmm. Because most of the technology is out there, we just need to connect it together.
Yeah.
And what I've learned is that the ability of, again, the existing stakeholders to look at human identity or machine identity, and within an eyesight, right, a glimpse of an eyesight to say, this is the definition of this identity, this person.
Yep.
These are all the systems that he can access to. This is what he can actually do. This is how he's protected. These are the weak points, and this is how we can play. It was not existing at all.
Okay.
So we created something that we've called a storyline that connects to all your systems within 15 minutes and can tell you exactly, inventorize all the identities, human or machines or scripts or bots or whatever, and tells that story. And on top of that, we started to build a level of operations. But when we actually created this commonality, this storyline, this graph, and I'll be very happy to show it to you after the show, it brought a lot of stakeholders to understand the problem together, and then based on our systems to fix them. So we saw the power of reinvent that term, or the way that you're kind of playing with that term.
Yep.
And then we've been very lucky because cloud came in. And then in the cloud, the shared security model, right? Everything is going off on-premise to the cloud. So all you have left with is who can access what, right?
Yes.
The oldest question in the security book. Mm-hmm. So it's become even stronger. And now with AI, it's even, much stronger because you have identities, machine identities with personality, like allegedly with a personality, right? So they're not kind of solid and deterministic in the way that they're acting.
Is this the problem you're solving is fundamentally a business problem? How does the same issue around identity affect individuals? So more of a consumer push, because one of the things that I can increasingly encounter in the world of recruitment now is we're seeing fake resumes.
Yeah.
Not even fake people, but people claiming they have skills that they don't have. So this is maybe a slight different to identity, but it's a misrepresented identity. And then what concerns me is over here we then have robots screening these fake resumes. And then even chatbots interviewing these people and presenting shortlists. And where's the truth through this?
So there's a transition. The truth is in the way that we're defining identity. Like before that, I live in the United States, right? So sometimes like, what is the identity in the United States? Like, hello, my name is Roy Akerman. I made my exit. My net worth is X. Yeah. I live in that neighborhood, right? It's like what you own, maybe what you can do or whatever. The true identity is what you did and what you about to do is with what you've accumulated, right? And I'll tell you that, like how many subscriptions or logins to new systems do you have? It's probably, the answer is not tens, right? It's with the hundreds, if not with the thousands. Like even if you look at your phone right now, how many apps do you have?
Oh, right. I wouldn't be able to count. Yeah, cool.
So you have some sort of digital signature. And even everyone that claims to have done something in their resume or something like that had some digital signatures about what they did. And that's the point. Like it's with today's world, it's not just like what did you write in the CV and can you actually prove that? Is that what is the digital signature that you have of doing that? Yeah. And if we cannot find this digital signature, and I'm recruiting for those like hackers positions and others, right? So then you should create a task that there's no way that even with automation and AI you'll be able to solve that. And we can, by the way, take the discussion of how do you do that, right?
Yep.
How do you know if somebody used ChatGPT or Claude or whatever to solve your mission? But the quick answer is that it's still that, I don't know if robots will be able to scan this, but like still you can find a digital footprint of how people behave and what they did.
Yeah.
I have a lot of kind of like discussions with old-time hackers, and we always like have a jokes like, when was your first Gmail account or like a Hotmail account was assigned? We have like competitions like, I was 2008, 19, or I don't know, like 2000 and what was it, like 3 or 4? Wow, at the beginning. So where they started, when they did that. So I hope that it makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. I think that there's a concept in financial services called Know Your Customer. Yeah, I see, right? And I guess I'm interested in how will that potentially extend more broadly in the future. And I think the future of if I take recruitment as just one industry, it's not going to be about how do we find people, it's how do we know people. And how do we make that more concrete and certain, particularly when we're engaging with organizations that are asking us to source talent. How do we vet that, validate it? We know this person. And I think that's a really interesting future proposition.
You're asking me about an idea that I have for a next startup. So I'll just say one thing. The idea is that, and you brought financials, which is maybe a fantastic reference world to the identity in general. So lenders in the United States and creditors and others, like, make you to hold a credit score, right? And that's it. You've been judged for the first time that you're in the US and getting a credit card. And you need time to accumulate that credit score. If something bad is happening, it impacts the entire system because it's registered in the same place. In today's world, or like let's say like in a few years from now, we'll need to have some sort of an equivalent to a person.
Yeah.
Right? And because AI made us to forget about privacy. Right? Like you want to solve something very quickly. You want to understand what's going on with this contract. You throw it to ChatGPT. It will make all the analysis, of course, with tons of hallucinations, but who cares? Like it's 80% corrected. Like it saved you probably a few hours and tons of money for the attorney. You'll do that.
Yep.
So the idea is that I believe that there should be an equivalent verifier or like some sort of a score that will allow us to understand where that person exists. Yeah, right? It's just like an extension of like if you're speaking with someone, you want to know if they have a social account and maybe if you post on like in other things, but it will be something greater that will collect this data and actually bring this in, like into more realistic consumption by others.
And from a kind of safety, privacy, security perspective, is that also an opportunity for blockchain?
Oh, yes and no. On the one hand, blockchain by the kind of like natural decentralization that you have there, I believe that the opportunity is that more and more people will feel that they can trust, right? More decentralized database or whatever it will be in order to accumulate that data. So in that form, I think that we'll see more and more fusions of blockchain and AI working together, right? Because you feel comfortable that you do not need to trust a specific institute to do that. From the other hand, I think that there's a lot of things that happen with blockchains, and we can have a different discussion about that let a lot of people feel that it's still a very high risk taking, that you're using blockchain in your authentications and your investments in bitcoins and others, right? So I feel that there's still the fast pace of AI right now is kind of shifted the willingness to take risk to that area, other than, okay, let's lay all our grounds on another, technological evolution. If that makes sense.
It does make sense. I guess one of the things that's been on my mind is about 6 months ago now, roughly, the Australian government passed legislation that said that social media will be banned for under 16s.
Ooh.
And that's imminent. So they're working through consultation right now for how to make that happen. The onus is on the big tech to enforce it. But the pushback you're hearing and the objections you're hearing from parents are saying, I don't want to upload my child's passport to verify to Facebook, Meta, or whoever. But I'm not targeting Meta, but I don't want to give my passport of my child to Meta.
I can understand.
To verify their age. So what's your solution? And I guess what was working in my mind is you have an independent body over here where you verify the age. That then creates some kind of blockchain or some kind of unique identifier which Facebook can then verify independently. So something, I don't know. And it was just thinking, I wonder if that could be extrapolated into other ways of verifying people's identity. And
it's a great idea. I think that going to that, I think that creating the equivalent to PayPal, right, for not sharing your credit cards with every different website, or I don't know, credit or to the identity area, and have a third-party validator that will keep this data safe. Only one. This could be a very strong potential solutions. What I've learned is that there are some nations that are trying to make that. So there was digital and then biometric passports and IDs and others. And now they will create this one hash or one, I don't know, a passphrase or whatever that then you can use in one time in order to actually validate the date of birth or something like that. Because I'm without those parents. I hate social media for my kids.
Yep.
I even prefer to let my kids use ChatGPT and Claude, which are not, may not be kind of kids friendly, right? It's even worse than letting your good kid Google whatever they want, right? Then let them, use social media in an unfiltered way. But I think that for the spec of validating your identity, date of birth, it's easy to solve.
I think so.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's people way cleverer than myself with this tech, but I was looking at these objections and I was thinking your average consumer, the average person on the street still thinks very linear. I don't want to give that to this person.
Yeah.
And it's how does the kind of tech evolve? And it's interesting, something you said earlier about when you first came into this world of cybersecurity, a CISO didn't exist. And it's something that I guess has played on my mind is that, and Abbas actually, I think, made this comment, which is be protected when you're connected.
Yeah.
I think was his mantra.
Yeah, I watched that podcast.
And it was, what it made me think about was I came into business in February 2000 into this role in recruitment. And before that day, I'd never been on the internet, never sent an email. And everything was done with fax machines and post and we evolved, right? So what I guess I'm thinking is that was about 25 years ago. So in that time, the internet's become mainstream in business, in life, in the way that we function, which with that has created cybersecurity. But really what that is a response to another risk, right, which happens to be embedded in technology and connection. But that's kind of normalized now.
Mm-hmm.
And most not normalized, it's always evolving, it's infinite, as you say, but it's established as a function, as a profession, as a focus for people. So at what point does that then come away from technology and become back within the risk domain?
So on the past or in the near future?
What's your view on it?
Well, I think that in every technology adoption life cycle, there's that barrier that people are willing to receive or to accept a specific risk because of the impact of the benefit that they're going to have. And I think I give an example of all these Gen AI apps that can really help you, right?
Yep.
I can be 10 times faster. I'm speaking English, but it's not my native language. I need to write an email. I want to express something. I will use ChatGPT or Copilot or whatever in order to help me, right?
Yeah.
Now at the beginning, it's like, okay, I'll censor the name of the person. I'll do this and that. And afterwards, it's just like sharing everything. You're getting the email, and we're, by the way, on the time that people don't even read what GPT gave them. They just like copy paste it and shift it, and you can see that. You can see that sometimes it's like copying, like in a test with the other person's name, right?
Yep.
They're taking even the comments of ChatGPT and that. So I think that point is coming again when the benefit is irresistible. Mm-hmm. Okay, same as the internet, right?
Yeah.
You could have used fax machines, right? And everything else, but you wanted to be faster. You wanted to use automations. You wanted to be more out there. Email. Now AI. I think that the next level will be when we'll understand that we don't need to be online or like, let's say, inline as people and man in the loop in order to be existing all the time. So we'll have apps. We already have. We'll have apps and automations and AI agents that will act on our behalf. Just like give them the outline of what you want to achieve.
Yeah.
It's like we have this today with deep research, right? And all this Gen AI, so they're doing the work for you and they're coming back. So again, that the willingness to accept that risk, to make some technology to be, the common thing, is exactly at that point that the benefit is so irresistible. So you even forget, you cannot really accumulate all that risk assessment that you're making. And I have tons of examples in coding world, in AlgoSec, or like automation of algorithms of investments and others. Like it's there.
I think my interpretation is this is much about trust. And again, I go back to being old enough to remember the world pre-e-commerce and post-e-commerce.
Yeah.
And when websites first, Amazon and other websites and eBay first start to appear, we had to trust, and you mentioned PayPal, we had to trust to put in our credit card details to make a purchase and that this thing would be delivered. Mm-hmm. I wasn't there just sending this off into the ether. And we got pretty comfortable fairly quick over a few years. And it's a question I often ask people, which is how much money would you spend on the internet without meeting or seeing the product?
Oh, yeah.
And I'm always interested. I met someone once who had bought a brand new car without ever going to a car dealership, because their logic was, well, I'm not a mechanic. I like the car. I like the look. It's from a main dealer. If it's something wrong, I'll take it back. I don't need to go and test drive this vehicle. I'm happy to make the purchase. I'm not sure if they put their credit card details in or whether they submitted a purchase, but I'm always interested in would someone buy a house, for example, never go.
And you read my mind. Yes, I almost did, by the way. Yeah, almost did. You can take a virtual tour. In a house today, they're coming with 3D cameras. You can, read about the history of the house from a valid resource. You need to make a decision fairly quick, because in specific environments, the house is being bought even before it's out there to the market, and you need to make a uniform decision.
Yeah.
So technology allows you to do that.
But it's interesting in the UK. I don't know if this has changed because it's been almost a decade since I left, but it used to be illegal to buy a property without physically seeing it or having an advocate see it.
Interesting.
I don't know if that has probably changed with the advancements of technology, but it was.
I don't know about any law like this in the US for sure.
It's interesting, and I think so. That's why I kind of go with AI.
Yeah.
I went to buy some tickets. I'm quite into longevity. Gary Brecker, if you know Gary Brecker,
yeah.
Coming to Australia in a couple of weeks, and it popped up on my Instagram. It was a video of Gary Brecker saying, "Hey, I'm coming to Melbourne. Click here to buy tickets." And for the first time in a long time that I can remember, I validated it before I made the purchase that he was actually coming. Because I thought, is that a deep fake?
How far did you go in validation? Just like Google it and...
I Googled it. I went to his website, went to his Instagram
page.
Okay,
that's pretty deep.
A few places. Yeah. Because I thought, it's not a huge amount of money, but it's my credit card details that I could be potentially entering here. Or, is this real?
But I think that that's rare. I think that what I see in the other side is like people getting phone calls for like password resets and things like that, and even operating centers, they will get a little bit of context, and that's it. They will need to act fast. And I don't know what will happen if there's like 5 like last tickets that we're selling, and any other encouragement or stress factor folded in.
I don't think it was. You know, that kind of only 5 tickets left or whatever. No, it wasn't quite as severe as that. But it was just it was interesting. It stopped me in my tracks, and maybe it was because I watched a Diary of a CEO episode with the CEO of Replit.
Oh,
and he was talking about, and that's what is on my mind now, is people without technical skills can build a website and publish in 10 minutes.
mm-hmm.
I don't think prior to probably say the last 18 months, 2 years, that was possible,
Right.
or as possible.
And I don't know if you've heard, there was like an equivalent to Cursor, like an Israeli that founded a company, Base 44, that you can build an app or a website just like by talking with a GPT or like with chat, all those technologies. Today he sold the company to Wix. It was like a solo entrepreneur, like $88 million.
Wow.
And he got, if I'm not mistaken, a few millions of users within a few months.
Wow.
Because you can do everything. You don't need to be a programmer.
Exactly right. You don't need to be a programmer. You need to be a marketer these days.
Yeah, totally marketer.
I think is the future. Hey, I'm really conscious of time. Maybe we'll do a couple of the lightning questions, but there is one question I want to ask you. If based on everything that you've learned in your career and kind of where you see cybersecurity right now, if you were Roy at 18, what advice would you be giving to yourself about how to build a career in this world?
Well, it's a big one. I think that the thing that drives me to success, and like taking the chance factors and everything else, was that I was always looking for a challenge that there's no specific framework to solve. So it's stressing you to think a little bit differently. Okay, not just like brute forcing what you already have, right? Things that you need to reform the way that people are doing something. And if there's a domain that you really like, I love cybersecurity, and you know that they're just like the new version of, I don't know, Xbox or whatever that's super protected or whatever, even for your own sake, try to hack it, right? Like keep the challenge, go to the challenge, focus more on the things that, there's a difference between people that will download the software and let's say that they're trying to crack it. I'm not saying that they should. They will try to look in the internet for a key generator, for like an executable that will do it for them or whatever. Like, just a second. Like try to do this in an untraditional way. With everything that you're doing, think a little bit, think a little bit different and do that. And I would just like tell myself, listen, be mindful that this is, like cybersecurity is the thing for you, because I've tested a lot of other things along the way. I thought to be like kids psychologists, and I took psychology in the university. I thought that I'll be a medical doctor. I wanted to be a physicist. Like I had a lot of journeys that I took. No, like this is the world, and cybersecurity by the end of the day is just enabling technologists to move forward, right? So I would calm myself down and tell myself, challenge yourself all the time.
Okay. Yeah, very good. Have we got time to do a couple of lightning questions?
Yep.
Yeah, Abbas is saying yes.
Oh, cool.
So, Abbas is the boss today.
Yeah, it is.
So
I was waiting for this. Let's see.
This is.
Can I ask, or I only they want to answer?
No, you have to answer. That's the one rule.
Okay.
No passes.
Let's take this and see what
We
happens.
can do 3. Just take 3 cards.
Okay.
But that's where we go.
What do you wish you knew before starting your career? Oh, okay. I think that everything that you're doing is super global from day one. Okay, so that although I lived and grew up in a very, very small country in the Middle East, but the same problems that I try to tackle and solve had strong impact as on my country, on the US, on Australia, and all the continents and whatever. And the reason is that, like you think that you're, growing up with a specific, limits and boundaries or whatever of language. But once you figure out that if you solve this problem, it will kind of like remediate or heal a lot of other places in the world, I think that the motivator will be much more stronger. For me, it's like, if I'll solve it, okay, 3, 4 people will be impacted. Yeah. For me, it's given me like a stronger driver.
I like it.
So this is one. Let's see. Trying to be random. What are the first 3 things you check when you start your day? Oh, wow. Okay. So the first thing is that I need to know that I'm in conscience. Like the Matrix, or Inception, right?
Yeah.
So although I'm not like a religious person, in Judaism, there's a 12-word prayer that you're doing, that thanking God that he brought you back from the other world, or like from sleeping or something like that. And I'm not a religious person, but somebody that I really loved when I was a kid, but like a very like distant, the relative of me taught me that prayer. And from checking that I'm in conscious, this is my totem, right? This is what I'm doing. I'm saying that prayer to myself, not in a loud voice. I don't even think that my kids knows that. And this is the first check that I'm doing, like that I'm here and now. The second thing that I'm doing is, if I'm at home, and if not, when I'm even on my way here, I need to check on my kids and my wife. I want to see their smile. That's it. Like, I know that they're stressed with their day or whatever, but for me, it's kind of like a symbol that of a positive existence. And the third one, of course, is that although I sold the company 7 months ago, I think that while in bed, before the coffee, before all the bio breaks that I need to take, I'm just like checking in with an email that everyone are good, that I'm not the inhibitor on every it's like very, important decision that should be made. Some Slack channel or email or something like that, I'll quickly need to solve it. Another one?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. Cool. Okay. That's the interesting things in life. What does work-life balance means to you? Nothing.
Yeah.
Sorry. I'll tell you that. Maybe when I'll be at my 70s, maybe, I do not know how to make the difference between work and life. I can take a very enthusiastic Zoom call and building something, and then when I'll make and drink my coffee, I'll see my piano on the other side, and I'll say, I have 5 minutes.
Yeah.
I prefer life on work.
Yeah.
I'll go and play something. I'm doing that. Everything is a fusion. I'll just say one thing about that seriously. I think that even that you're working very hard, and I'm working sometimes 16 hours a day, even more than that, I really like what I'm doing. Like, and this, what always been. Surround yourself with the things that matters to you in life, right? Like I'm going to lunch with my wife twice a week in a favorite restaurant that we have in the street, Japanese restaurant, because this is my life. This is what I like to do. And when I'm not doing this, because I'm traveling, I'm picking up the phone while I'm in lunch, and trying to have this with her. I'm keeping music instruments with me mostly all the time in the hotel. Like, this is what I'm checking because I want to have pieces of life like surrounding me.
That's interesting. So I'm just reflecting as you're saying that work is a reality of life.
Work is a reality of life.
So therefore, it's what we do with life that is actually the decisions we make. And I think probably compared to 10, 15, 20 years ago, there's many more distractions in life. There's many more things that, smartphones didn't exist 15 years ago. So we're suddenly distracted with something completely different in life, but not necessarily in work. Work roughly is the same amount of time, same time.
I agree.
And that's kind of what I'm hearing from what you're saying there, is pick your distractions.
Yeah.
Being mindful with those distractions, because we all need them.
Yeah,
if you're mindful,
I love
it's just
that.
your reading, your wife, your family, it's dinner, it's play. What instruments do you play? I'm interested.
Oh, piano and a baby grand, which was my exit present, and digital pianos and all
So
this.
which ones do you travel with? You can't travel with a grand.
No, so I'm making sure that the hotels that I'm at, or like at least restaurants nearby, will have a piano that I can play.
Oh wow!
And I don't even ask anyone. Even in Ho Chi Minh City that I came from here, they have like a huge piano, in the Devon Center, and then I could have play.
So when you sit down at piano, what's the first thing you play?
Oh, so it's I always try to work on a piece. Now it's Genesis, the fifth of the fourth. I don't know if you remember that. There's a very big intro of a piano over there of Genesis. So this one is a big one, and then I'm a Queen fan. So so a little bit of Freddie.
Bohemian Rhapsody on the piano.
Yeah, exactly.
Love it. Amazing. I could talk to you all day, Roy. It's you've got a huge amount of knowledge and experience, and you've been very very generous with your time this morning, and I know you've got a busy schedule in Australia, so thank you for coming by and sharing some of your story.
It was my pleasure. Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Thank you for listening to Tales from Tech Titans, and be sure to follow us wherever you get your podcast. If you'd like to get more insights about tech careers, then check out the Ember, that's EMMBR LinkedIn page for the latest updates, articles, and engaging discussions.